Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Happy that you're with us once again. So, this evening, as before, we will start by chanting the Ratana Sutta and then we'll have monk chat. So, the basic guidelines for monk chat is once again at the beginning, each person can ask 2 questions. And if we get through all the questions and there's still plenty of time, then people can ask additional questions. If you would like to join in chanting the Ratana Sutta, you can find the link at the top of the live chat. And hello to friends joining in. Hello, Sally, Elaine, Geeta, Bradley, and Jean. Hello, welcome. Happy you're with us. Hello, custom wavelengths. Do we know custom wavelengths?
We
really?
do know, but we do know custom wavelengths.
Okay. Hello, Kamala. So we'll go ahead and start with chanting the Ratana Sutta. So please, if you would like to join in, please join in. Otherwise, listen attentively. And as you listen, form the sincere wish for all those who are sick to be free of sickness, for all those in danger to be safe, and for all beings to swiftly attain full awakening.
Yes, and a special dedication to our friend Andy. May he recover and be well and happy, and may the triple gem be always with him.
Great.
All right.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Yani bhutani samagatani bhummani vayani vantaleke sabeva bhuta sumana bhavantu atopi sakata sunantu bhasitam tasmahi bhutani sameta sabe metam karota manusiya pajaya divacharato chaharanti evaling tasmahi nerakata pamata yan kinchividam idhavahuram vasagesu ayam ratanam panitam Nano samangati tathagatena idampi buddhe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu kayam viragam amatam panitam yadanchaga sakyamuni samahito Nadena dhammena samati kinchi dampi dhamme ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu Yang buddha seto parivannai suching samadhimanandare kanyamaho Samadhinatena samona vijati idampi dhamme ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu Ye pungala atasatam pasata chatari dhani yugani hondi Te dakineya sugata sasavaka ete sudinnani mahapalani idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu Ye sopayota manasa dalhena nekamino gotamasa sanamhi Te patipadamatam vigaiha lanthamudani muting munjamana Idampi Sanghe Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Suvati Hotu Yatinda Kilo Pataving Sitosia Chatum Vivate Via Sampakampiyo Tadupamangsa Murisang Madami Yo Arya Satchani Avecha Pasati Idampi Sanghe Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Suvati Hotu Ye Arya Satchani Vibhavayanti Gambhira Panyena Sudesitani Kinchapite Hondi Pusapamata Nate Bhavangatamang Adiyanti Idampi Sanghe Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Suvati Hotu Sahava Sadasana Sampadaya Dayasu Dhamma Jahita Bhavanti Sakaya Diti Vichike Chitancha Silambatam Vapi Yadati Kinchi Chatuhapaye Chavipamuto Chachapitanani Abhambo Katum Idampi Sanghe Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Suvati Hotu Kinchapi Sokam Mangaroti Papakam Kayena Vacha Uracheta Sava Abhambo Sodha Sapatichadaya Abhambata Ditapada Savutam Idampi Sanghe Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Suvati Hotu Vanapagumbe Yatha Bhusiddhange Gimhanamase Patamasmi Nimhe Tatupamam Dhammavarang Adesayi Vanagaming Paramam Hidaya Idampi Buddhe Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Suvati Hotu Varo Varanyo Varado Varaharo Anutaro Dhammavarang Adesayi Idampi Buddhe Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Suvati Hotu
Hinam
Puranam Navam Nati Sambhavam Virata Chitta Ayatike Bhavasming Tekina Bija Viruhin Chanda Nirbanti Girayatayam Padipo Idampi Sanghe Ratanam Panitam Etena Sachena Suvati Hotu Yani Bhutani Samagatani Bhummani Vayani Vantarike Tathagatam Deva Manusapujitam Buddham Namasama Suvati Hotu Yani Bhutani Samagatani Bhummani Vayani Vantarike Tathagatam Deva Manusapujitam Dhammam Namasama Suvati Hotu Yani Bhutani Samagatani Bhummani Vayani Vantarike Tathagatam Deva Manusapujitam Sangham Namasama Suvati Hotu Etena Sachavajjena Dukavo Pasamentu Te Etena Sachavajjena Bhayavo Pasamentu Te Etena Sachavajjena Rogavo Pasamentu Te Okay, that was lovely. And hello to a few more people checking in. Hello, Adriana. Hello, Lilia. Hello, Javier and Marielle. So happy to see all of you participating this evening. So, starting at the top, so Sally expressing her gratitude for the teachings. Well, I'm really happy that it's helping. And I'm happy that your understanding is growing and deepening, and I hope that you swiftly attain full awakening. So I can't promise to help you with that, but I'll do what I can.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay. And do you want to take the first question?
How about you take the first question? Because I already spoke about this last time.
Oh, so Elaine says, I have a question. Is it an acceptable purchase to buy a box spring and bed frame? Situation, mattress on the floor, but it covers the heating vent. I tried rearranging the room, but it is awkward and not really functional to rearrange the mattress. If I bought a box spring and frame, it would elevate the mattress above the vent, allowing heat to circulate in the bedroom. What do you think? Trying to maintain the 8 precepts. Thank you. Yeah, that seems like a very practical reason. You might skip the box spring. For one thing, I've never really found them to do much of anything. They seem kind of useless. So I'd skip the box spring, but yeah, getting a simple low bed frame is fine. I remember when I went to live at a monastery in Canada a few years ago. All the monks' cabins have short bed frames, very simple wooden bed frames, about 8 or 12 inches tall total, 6 to 10 inches. I don't remember exactly how tall. But they're pretty low, they're very simple. And the abbot said, well, the reason for that is very simple. It gets really cold in the winter. And if you're sleeping directly on the floor, you're a lot colder. And being even just a few inches off the ground makes a tremendous difference. So that was a very practical reason. So if you have a practical reason, then there's no problem. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Again, the point here is not to make your life ridiculously impractical, but rather it's about simplifying. It's about letting go. It's about practicing renunciation, finding the joy and contentment and simplicity. Okay?
And Sally is asking, is emotion or affection an important aspect of Buddhism practice? This afternoon, I did gratitude meditation again. I felt strong emotion that opened some blocked blame habits. Looks like the compassion mommy, Aya's words, appeared not from rational thinking or Dhamma investigation, but a feeling without logic. What kind of Theravada practices help in this aspect? Repent, metta. Well, actually, it seems what you're doing seems to be working, since you said that it opens some blocks, some of your blame habits. So emotion and affection in Buddhist practice, my understanding anyway, is that we need to fundamentally understand our experience first and foremost. Look at our experience, have the courage to honestly see what we're going through. And by that, we need to become aware of our emotional experience to begin with, without judging it in one way or the other. So there's going to be a lot of ugly things that we do to ourselves that we also do to others. Some beautiful things that we do to ourselves and that we also do to others. And we kind of have to acknowledge what is currently going on, look at our experience, and practice all the different meditation techniques that are presented, also the paramis, and see what are the effects on our mind. So, for example, you tried out gratitude meditation, which Bante had introduced the other day, and it seems to have brought great results, so then keep it up. Keep doing that gratitude meditation. Recollect the qualities of the Buddha, which means that are qualities that also you have the potential to develop fully. Contemplate the fact of the good karma that you have found the teachings, that all of us actually here present are currently interested in the teachings, have found the teachings, are practicing the teachings. What an incredible, fortunate circumstance. Also, look at your mind before and after the practice and rejoice in a brighter mind, in a more wise mind, in a more peaceful mind. So just try to bring everything in accordance, lighten up the mind a little bit. So these are all like great practices that you can do. Metta, repentance practice, but don't do too much. Focus on a few. These ones that you mentioned, seems like you're already gaining benefit from it. Don't mix too much. Just focus on these, do them properly, and you're on the right path.
Okay. Let's see. Then we have a few more questions.
Hello, Adriana.
Yeah. Okay, so Gabriella is asking, in the Ambalatika Rahulovada Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya number 61, the Buddha asks us to reflect before, during, and after doing an action. How do we properly reflect so as to not generate papancha or justify wrong actions? So this is carefully examining our intentions before doing something, during doing something, and after doing something. And also carefully considering the potential consequences of the choices that we make and any circumstances or conditions which might potentially alter what choices we might want to make under these conditions. And then during the action, also watching what effect it's having. So, for example, you might start off with a plan to do something that seems like a really good idea, but then once you start doing it, you realize that it's actually causing harm. So you want to pay close attention while you're doing it so you can recognize you're causing harm, and you can stop or change. Or you might start off with good intentions, and then you start doing the action, but while you're engaged in it, then your attitude starts to change and you start to slip into unwholesome mind states and unwholesome intentions. And so you want to be aware of that so you can catch yourself and stop and pull back. So an example of that might be that you want to offer some constructive criticism to someone. And it's starting off with a very wholesome intention of wanting to benefit them, bring them further along in their practice, help them out. But then once you actually start talking to them, you start slipping into vindictiveness and hostility. And it's like, oh, yes, now I get a chance to really like dig the knife in. Yeah, you should know how bad a practitioner you are. And so the mind slips from that initially wholesome, compassionate motive. It slips into a harmful, unwholesome motive. So watching to catch yourself, to make sure that you're staying with a wholesome, positive intention the whole time, and to be very careful to consider whether or not you're getting positive results from what you're doing. And then reflecting afterwards is to reflect. How did that go? Did I start with wholesome intentions? Did I maintain wholesome intentions? Did I carefully consider the potential consequences of my choices so that I could make beneficial choices, both during and after, both before and during? So this is all wholesome. It's not papancha, it's not proliferation. It's all wholesome because it's a matter of carefully considering what we're doing, and whether it's wholesome or unwholesome, how it's affecting the living beings that are involved. But also don't get too wrapped up in this. You shouldn't just be sitting around agonizing constantly. Oh, did I really make the right choice 12 years ago? Oh, who cares? That was a long time ago. Rather, you make that intention of like, well, I'm going to do the best I can from this day forward. So a little bit of contemplation and reflection is fine, but don't go overboard. Once you've learned what there is to learn, then let go and move on. So don't dwell on it too much. But yeah, a little bit of reflection afterwards can be quite helpful in helping to clarify, how did that go? Did I really do so well? And if you think, yeah, I did a really great job, then it's like, cool, I'll keep it up. If you think, no, I kind of screwed up a little bit, then you're like, all right, I'll do better next time. And then you drop it and let your mind return to silence. As I mentioned a number of times, your mind should be silent most of the time. I'd say at least 95% of your waking hours, your mind should be silent. You don't need to use it very much. You don't need to think very much. We think way more than we need to. So let it be silent most of the time. Okay.
Oh, Tamira is watching from Brazil.
Ah, wonderful.
Cool. Oh, and Victor from Paris.
Great.
Awesome.
I really love how international our audience is. So this group that we're forming here, it's really beautiful. I think so far we have every continent except Africa and Antarctica.
That we know of.
That's
So
true.
you might be watching without saying.
If anyone is joining in from Africa, please let us know, because then we would have every continent except Antarctica.
Which,
I mean,
fair enough.
There's only a handful of people who live in Antarctica, so I'm not expecting too much from that one.
And James is asking, in mindfulness of breathing, do all 16 exercises need to be done for awakening, or does fulfilling any set of 4 lead to awakening? This is a good question for you.
So the critical practices that lead to liberation are in the last set of 4, which are the practices of renunciation, the practices of contemplating impermanence, the practices of cultivating dispassion. That's all in the last set of 4. So the preceding 12 steps are mostly in the domain of samatha practice. They're about cultivating mindfulness and samadhi and equanimity and serenity, like all kinds of really good, helpful, wholesome mind states, but not things that by themselves will lead to enlightenment. So no, you can't just pick any random set of 4 and expect it to take you all the way. Sorry.
And Elaine is asking, where in Canada was Bante? I can answer this because I know. The Sarana Monastery in Ontario.
That's where I spent about a year. I also spent a few weeks at a couple other monasteries, so in Ottawa and in Toronto. Yeah, most of my time was at Tisarana.
And Javier is asking, how do you practice sense restraint in day-to-day practice? Are there certain techniques and observances that are recommended? Yes, absolutely. How do you practice sense restraint? By restraining your senses. Very simple. So guarding the mind in every moment, which requires obviously a lot of mindfulness, very well developed mindfulness. So the more your mindfulness is developed, the more you're able to be aware of your states of mind. And you're aware and always constantly remembering to restrain your senses. So through guarding basically the eye whenever we see any kind of beautiful form appearing or ugly form appearing, guarding ourselves from clinging to it, attaching to it, reaching out to it, and then holding to, oh, look at this beautiful cup. Oh, okay, I want, oh, yes, yes, give me more cups, more cups. Same goes with the nose. We smell a beautiful smell. Oh yes, I really like. Now it's spring. All the flowers are blooming. Give me some of that, more and more. And then we smell something a little bit awful, and we're like, oh, I don't like that. I don't want that. And then it's in between, neither here nor there. And we're like, yeah, that's okay. So we're still kind of not really understanding, not seeing our experience, and just attaching, clinging to whatever we're smelling. Then sounds that we like and sounds that we dislike. So with the ear, with the tongue, we do that multiple times a day. Any kind of sense, taste that we have with food that we're introducing. Then we're like, oh, pizza. Yes, I like pizza. So I want pizza every day. And we've been having pizza so much these days, thanks to the donors. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. But yeah, so instead of obsessing about the taste of pizza, then we understand the danger. Well, we understand the gratification in the pizza, the danger in the pizza, and we know the escape, the teachings of the Buddha. So we guard our senses way before we even get to the pizza. And as we're having the pizza, and after having the pizza. Then any kind of bodily sensation that we have, we guard our mind with, oh, I really like the texture of this blanket. And I really don't like the sensation of the floor. So once again, not veering in one direction or the other. And similarly, surprise, surprise, also with the mind, which is my biggest difficulty, actually. The delicious thoughts that appear in the mind, or the ugly thoughts that scare us, that appear also in the mind. The emotions, pretty much everything that is the constellation of mental phenomena. So in that way, we are practicing self-restraint. So basically creating the conditions for us to understand clearly our experience, and detaching instead of attaching, instead of fortifying all our tendencies of grasping and then attaching in the end.
So, hello, Mark. So, Mark is reporting that Custom Wavelengths is named Maya, and that they came and joined us here for one of our pre-pandemic Dharma sessions back when we were still having in-person classes. So I hope that, yeah, I was really delighted to have you with us. So I hope that you'll come and visit us again when such things are possible. Then Gabriella says, in the Vajira Sutta, a sentient being is said by Aya Vajira to be merely a convention we use to refer to those things compiled of mind and body. I found this to have a strange effect on my metta, karuna, and mudita practice, but it sharpened my upekkha practice. How are we supposed to regard beings? Well, first off, I'd like to know what the strange effect it had on your metta, karuna, and mudita was. Also, what came immediately to mind for me was the Diamond Sutra, the Vajracchedika Prajnaparamita Sutra, which I've been slowly compiling a translation from Sanskrit of the Diamond Sutra. So one of these days, we'll start having classes on the Diamond Sutra, but not anytime soon because I have a million other things to do in the meantime. Because that sutra actually fairly directly addresses this question, but addresses it in that cryptic Prajnaparamita kind of way. So, yeah, Ayavajira is right. Fundamentally, there's no such thing as a being. There's no such thing as a sentient being. Which is actually one of the things the Diamond Sutra is talking about. Fundamentally, there are no beings. There's just conditional phenomena that come and go. And we refer to a collection of physical and mental components as a sentient being. But that's not actually a true statement. So, yeah, fundamentally, the whole idea of sentient beings is just a convention that we use in order to relate, to function in the conventional world. But it has no actual truth to it. It has no actual reality to it. Nonetheless, even though sentient beings don't really exist the way we normally think of it, they certainly feel like they do. That's why we should still have compassion. Just as you suffer, even though you technically are not an ongoing, persistent being, everybody else is suffering, even though they're technically not ongoing, persistent beings either. And the choices and decisions that we make in relationship to those non-beings that seem to be beings has karmic weight. It has power. It has potency. We have the ability to shape our experience and to impact the experience of others as well. So, yeah, fundamentally, there are no beings, and yet there is the appearance of beings, which once again is exactly what the Diamond Sutra is talking about. So the ongoing line in the Diamond Sutra is, in this case, it would be what the Buddha spoke of as sentient beings are not actually sentient beings, which is why he spoke of them as sentient beings. This is exactly what he's talking about. Yeah, fundamentally, there are no sentient beings. There's just a temporary conglomeration of insubstantial components. And yet, there is the experience of sentient beings, and there is the experience of beings experiencing dukkha. And there is the wish for those beings to be free of dukkha. Therefore, there is compassion. So the deepest compassion comes from that direct recognition that all these non-beings are suffering terribly because they think that they are beings. Therefore, the most compassion we can possibly have is to try to help them attain awakening. So, again, in the Diamond Sutra, it's clear that reflecting on these truths, the natural effect of reflecting on this truth is the arising of great compassion. So, if you're getting the opposite effect, then once again, I'm curious what exactly is going on there. Because when it's really important when contemplating subjects of emptiness and formlessness and absolute reality and nirvana and so on, unconditioned element and all that. It's really important when contemplating these things that we don't lose sight of the world of phenomena, that we don't lose sight of the world of forms. In Zen circles, they talk about the danger of getting stuck in emptiness. And this is one example of that. If you think, oh, all beings are just emptiness, so it doesn't matter what we do to them, well, that's getting stuck in emptiness, and it's overlooking the world of forms, the world of objects and beings and activities, because that also is a part of reality. So reality has both form and formlessness. And if we fixate on one to the exclusion of the other, that's not wisdom. That's just more delusion. It's like when you pick up a coin and you try to say that the coin only has tails, but actually the coin always comes with both heads and tails inseparably. Similarly, reality is form and formlessness inseparably. So normally non-practitioners fixate excessively on form and neglect formlessness entirely, and that creates one kind of lopsided delusion. And then sometimes when we get into spiritual practice, we fixate so much on formlessness that we lose sight of form. And that's another form of delusional lopsidedness, which also warps and distorts the mind. So one needs to be fully aware of both form and formlessness without giving extra weight to either side, but rather viewing both with equality and impartiality. I hope that helps. Okay.
And oh, great. Hello, Richard from very close by, and Priyakant from India, and Alejandra from Colombia. Very awesome.
Yeah, Richard was coming to the monastery back before the pandemic. Yeah.
And Gabriela has another question. We'll see if there are some others. Otherwise, we'll go to that.
Okay, well, Victor has a question, but actually, I mean, it's still early. Maybe we should just go through them in the order they're typed. What do you think?
Well, let's read Victor and then we can go up.
Okay.
Victor says how we have to react to the group of people that call themselves followers of the Buddha, but the teaching is so far away from Buddha Dhamma. This is like Kung Tao or
Iguan Dao.
Oh.
He typed it using the Waze Giles system as Iguan Dao. I know what he's talking about.
Or Maitreya Dharma or Living Buddha. Sometimes makes me upset by their misleading people. Well, they call themselves followers of the Buddha, teaching so far away from the Buddha Dharma. So I'll share my thoughts and then you can share yours. How's that?
Go ahead.
So I can say that we can control our minds, so we can control what we are doing, but we can't really control other people. So Buddhism is the fourth religion in the world. So there's a lot of people, which is great, by the way. This is the great news. Lots of people practicing Buddhism. Wonderful. Still the teachings readily available. This is great. How awesome. How wonderful. This being said, the more people practice something, the more mainstream it is, then also the more chances that amongst all these people might not be practicing correctly. Because since we're all full of greed, hatred, and delusion, then sometimes we can start misunderstanding certain teachings, or having certain experiences or kind of what we think are realizations during meditation, and think they are something else, misconceive them, misperceive them. So I would say the best thing we can do is, in these situations, when we see that other groups of people or other lineages or non-lineages or whatever is going on, whether it's in this country, in other countries, in other world systems, I'm pretty sure it also happens in other world systems, is just have compassion and really truly wish for all these people to practice correctly and get back into the right path. So there's not much that we can do to stop these things unless we are involved in one degree or another. And then if we see that there are clearly some unethical things happening within the organization, or abuse or whatever is going on, to denounce it. So to come forward and try our best to help the people around us. So these are my thoughts. Bante, would you like to add anything?
I think that covers it pretty well. I would just say try to have compassion for these people, because most of them, they're just delusional. And their delusion leads to them making bad choices, like spreading misinformation. But fundamentally, they're just delusional and they don't realize that they're causing harm. So try to have compassion for them.
And actually, I'm going back to Gabriela's question. I was asking, what are the best way to generate the paramis of generosity, renunciation, wisdom, energy, patience, truth, determination, kindness, and equanimity in day-to-day life? We're thinking about doing the retreat on that. So let's save it for another occasion. And I think that and then after that there was just Victor's, so we can go to Andre.
Okay. So Andre says, my question is about developing loving kindness. I have read stories about Ajahn Mun and other monks who are respected by devas and all because of how they radiate loving kindness to all beings. I have tried to develop loving kindness in this way. Can you give some tips on how to develop this type of boundless loving kindness towards all beings? Yeah, just keep practicing loving kindness all the time. And live it. Don't just do it as a meditation practice, really live it. Be kind to every being that you encounter, whether large or small, human or non-human. Perform acts of kindness with body, speech, and mind.
There's also an extra piece.
Oh.
For example, there is a story of Ajahn Mun instructing his disciples to send metta to a certain monk who was having difficulties at the time. Is it basically chant metta chant?
No, it's not chanting the metta chant. No. Though, I mean, some people it's helpful, but that's really not what loving kindness is. So loving kindness is an attitude of mind. It's an attitude of mind which simply wishes for all beings to be happy. That's it. So it's this feeling, this emotion, this attitude of unrestricted benevolence, of unconditional goodwill towards all beings. And actually, when it's fully developed, there's not even the concept of beings. There's just the feeling of loving kindness. There's just the attitude of benevolence. There's not even a concept of I am sending metta to that person, or I feel metta for that person. There's none of that. There's just metta. So yeah, just practice loving kindness meditation every day, and really try to bring up the feeling of loving kindness and focus on the feeling, making it stronger and brighter without reservation, without limitation. And act with kindness and courtesy and respectfulness and compassion in every moment towards every being. And keep bringing to mind that wish, may everyone be happy, may everyone be happy. And as time goes by, it'll grow and grow and grow. Get stronger and stronger. Practice makes perfect. Okay.
And Shani is asking, do you have any tips for someone who is just starting to get into Buddhism? Where should I start? Well, this is a great start. And actually, this weekend, we'll be starting, this upcoming weekend, we'll start some day-longs with Bhante Sudaso on the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So that's also a great start, because that was how I started, just getting deep into the practice. But between now and Saturday, you can tune in for the live streams, but also check out a few books that are good to start. So there's pretty much anything from Ajahn Chah at the very beginning of my practice I found extremely useful. Ajahn Chah was a famous master of the Thai forest tradition, and you can find all his books for free on forestsangha.org, right? So you can download Ajahn Chah's books and also a lot of books from the other monastics of that tradition, all for free, all available there. Banteji's Mindfulness in Plain English, although that one I believe you need to purchase somewhere. So
there's a free ebook as well.
There's also apparently a free ebook. So search online, but lots of people. Actually, I think it's like if you put mindfulness on Amazon, it's like the first book that shows up, or one of the first. So it has helped many, many, many people at the beginning of their practice. And getting back to me, what I really also love is the anthology that Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi did on the suttas. So it's called In the Buddha's Words, and it's a sort of collection of suttas, some short, some longer, from the Pali Canon. And I remember when I first read it, that's when, bam, I was like, okay, I'm a Buddhist. this is great. This is really solid stuff. So it's good to have, I recommend having a sort of intellectual understanding of what Buddhism is, what it teaches, if it speaks to you, if it's something that you want to pursue. And then without waiting too much, so without having to become an expert and get a PhD in Buddhist studies, like really get into the practice. Otherwise, you can risk, which is actually what happened to me in my current life. I encountered the Buddhist teachings 5 years before I started practicing them, and in the 5-year gap, because I actually just read a bunch of books and had, I was more attracted to the intellectual side of it. I didn't really practice it, so it wasn't something that became relevant to my life. But once you start really putting it in action, really trying the meditation practices, etc., and practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, I'm saying practicing, not by chance, but intentionally. Then you really have a taste of the Dhamma. You can really look for yourself and really get the enthusiasm to keep moving forward.
Okay, and Boon asks, if samadhi is stronger, does it mean wisdom is also better? Or do we need to strengthen other practice? Yeah, so not necessarily. If you have strong samadhi and you just keep doing strong samadhi and you don't work on insight, then you'll have strong samadhi but weak insight. On the other hand, if you just do insight but you don't do any samadhi, then you'll only have weak insight. It will never get strong. So you need strong samadhi to have strong insight. But strong samadhi does not automatically guarantee that you have strong insight. You still need to work on the insight deliberately. Okay?
And yes, so all the retreats I mentioned will be online. Actually, in fact, the YouTube, we'll have 3 meetings. Bante doesn't know yet. On Saturday, Sunday, and then so on Saturday we'll be focusing on mindfulness of the body. Then on Sunday we'll be focusing on mindfulness of feeling.
So in case it's not clear who's really in charge of this monastery, it should be pretty clear by now who calls the shots around here.
No, I just make the schedule. Sometimes. So in the morning, what I have in mind is to do the sutta study part, then do meditation practice, afternoon guided meditation, and then evening sort of Q&A format, another guided meditation Q&A format, and same for mindfulness of feeling, mindfulness of mind, mindfulness of the Dhamma. So it will be 4 day longs.
Do you notice how this is not taking the form of a dialogue or a discussion?
Because I'm sure that is what you had in mind. I just
Okay, so moving on.
Skipping the steps. And however, it's already online, so you can all join us together. And Andre is saying there are also stories that say some arhats are not able to attain jhana. In this case, it means that it's not so important to put all my efforts towards concentration and stress about not being able to attain jhana, but to attain what I can in concentration, but also give efforts to contemplation of the 3 characteristics. Is this correct?
No. So to give a little bit more information here, first off, there is nothing in the suttas which indicates that one can be an arhat without attaining jhana. And in fact, the Buddha defines sammasamadhi, which is one of the steps of the Noble Eightfold Path, as being jhana, as being the first 4 jhanas. And he says over and over again that one must fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path in order to attain awakening. And the Buddha spoke about jhana over and over and over and over again throughout the suttas. So I have occasionally heard people say that you can become an arhat without attaining jhana, but I've never seen any convincing argument based on anything in the suttas to back up that opinion. And what I have seen in the suttas is exactly the opposite, that one does need to cultivate jhana in order to attain awakening. So I actually don't believe that it's possible to be an arhat without jhana. I don't believe so. Based on what I can understand of the Buddha's teachings and what I know of the suttas, I don't think it's possible. That said, your other statements are actually correct. You said, does it mean it's not so important to put all my efforts towards concentration? You're correct. You should not put all of your efforts towards concentration. It's okay to put most of your efforts towards concentration, but yes, you should also devote some of your effort towards, can you scroll back up? Thank you. Yes, you should also put effort towards contemplation of the three characteristics, yes. You're also correct that you should not stress about not attaining jhana. Yeah, don't stress about it. But if you keep creating the conditions, then eventually jhana will manifest. It's all about the conditions. But yeah, don't stress about it. Why would you stress about it? If you create the conditions, then it will happen. If you don't create the conditions, it won't happen. Either way, just keep building up the foundations of the path. Keep working on the Noble Eightfold Path, all of its aspects, including laying the foundation stones for jhana, so building up your samadhi. So there's a lot of confusion around jhana, and a lot of people think it's some like far out mystical state which is nearly impossible, but that's really not the case. If you want jhana, it's really not that complicated. Go on a 3-month silent retreat, and she laughs. I'm not kidding. Do you know how many 3-month retreats I've done in my life? Anyway, 3-month retreats. Go on a nice long 3-month retreat. It's actually quite easy. There's a lot of places in Asia where you can go and stay for basically as long as you want on retreat. So it's quite doable. It's just in the West that going on 3-month retreats is a little bit hard to arrange unless you have mountains of cash. And then of course it's easy because it's America. Everything runs on money. But in Asia, you can be dead broke and stay in retreat centers for months on end, and they're just happy that you're there meditating. Yeah, go on a 3-month-long retreat. Pick a meditation object, a samadhi object. I recommend your body or your breath. And just keep putting your mind on the object over and over and over again, and don't think about anything else, and you'll get jhana. Not guaranteed, of course, but extremely likely. It's really not that far out of a thing. You just have to create the proper conditions for it. So the main reason why people think jhana is hard is because they live very messy, complicated, busy lives. They listen to music, they watch TV, they play video games, they engage in a lot of useless conversation, they think nonstop from morning till night. Of course, jhana is impossible under those conditions. You have to create good conditions. But yeah, don't stress about it. Nonetheless, keep practicing it. Okay?
And I don't know what James is saying. It's okay if you can't answer. I just want to make sure.
Did we miss a question?
We might have missed your question.
But maybe we can scroll up briefly and see if we missed a question.
One second.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. No, well, because we already answered that one. So, James, if you can just ask your question again, and we're happy to answer it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And we learned, or at least I did, this great function on Sutta Central that you can go to suttacentral.net/subjects and find any specific subject
Oh,
you want to
great.
know. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for the tip, Gabriella. That is great. And do you want to get Bradley's?
He says, Samyutta Nikaya 42.2 with Talaputta has always been a bit hard for me to swallow. Any words on how to take the teaching, literally, metaphorically, with conditions? I've seen Talaputta translated as an actor or a dancing master in different versions. Can you refresh my memory about that sutta? Because I don't remember off the top of my head what the contents of that particular discourse are.
Me neither, which is why I passed it on to him.
Yeah. Okay, so meanwhile, we'll take the next question.
Gabriella says, a friend of mine gets upset when the Buddha calls a monk who is out of line with the teachings Mogapurisa, translated as foolish man or the like. How do I explain that this is not bullying? And Bradley says, I've also seen it translated as worthless man and silly man. But my friend gets really distressed about it, thinking the Buddha is mean. Aw. But I try to say, if the Buddha himself is involved, it means they ignored all the arhats trying to correct them and had the Buddha himself come out of seclusion to censure them. So it's more than just being wrong, but stubbornly wrong. So my understanding is that so we have these ideas of what being compassionate means like. And actually, that's where often the question of does being a Buddhist mean that you are a little doormat? There's always often this sort of question that comes up in at least at Buddhist insights, but pretty much everywhere I've been in Buddhist circles. So the idea that there's only one way to respond to whatever we are dealing with. But when you actually see the Buddha, how he deals with different people and different situations, we see that there's actually never a sort of copy and paste answer, but on the other hand, but instead he has always an appropriate response given the circumstances. So he acts based on wisdom and compassion. So sometimes he is extremely gentle and kind, uses a very soft manner of interacting with people. And some other times he's very strict and very to the point. But it always comes out of compassion. And you'll see it also in, for example, if you read the way that Ajahn Chah would train monastics, he would have the same exact way of dealing with monastics given the circumstances. And that's basically what we need to aspire to. So I think actually that's also what someone, I can't remember because my mind today again is a little bit foggy, but there is a sutta where someone asks the Buddha, can you refresh my memory? And the Buddha actually says that he can't, I'm blanking out. But anyway, he addresses exactly this, that sometimes it's appropriate to be a little bit forceful for the benefit, for the benefit of the other person.
Abhaya Rajakumara Sutta.
I knew you knew it because he's a living Dhamma encyclopedia. I love it because we can ask everything and he knows it.
If only that was true.
But yeah, so maybe you want to actually quote that sutta if you remember.
Yeah. In that sutta, so Prince Abhaya asked the Buddha, would you ever say something to someone that was unpleasant and displeasing? And the Buddha says that he knows the right time to use such speech. And he gives an example. So Prince Abhaya was holding a baby at the time. And so the Buddha said, do you care about that child? And Prince Abhaya says, yes, of course, I care very deeply about this child. And the Buddha said, well, what would you do if that child put a stick or a stone in its mouth? And the prince said, well, of course, I would take it out because I care about the child. And the Buddha said, well, what if it got stuck in the child's throat? And Prince Abhaya said, well, in that case, I would pin the child down and I would shove my hand down its throat and I would pull out that stone. I would do whatever I had to do, even if it meant hurting the child, because I care about the child so much. And the Buddha said, in the same way, the Tathagata knows the right time to use rough language, to use rough speech. So I'm paraphrasing a little bit because I don't remember the exact phrasing off the top of my head. But that's the general thrust of that sutta. It's indicating that there actually is some circumstances where very direct, forceful speech is the most compassionate option. But yeah, as for the word moga purisa, so moga is, it's actually an extremely rare word in the suttas. We usually only see it in the compound moga purisa. But it appears to be related to the word moha, which means delusion or confusion. So moga purisa, you could probably translate it as delusional person or confused person, which maybe feels a little bit softer than calling them foolish man or empty-headed man or silly man or the other translations. Yeah, the Buddha's just being very clear. He's just like, yeah, you're delusional, you're confused. You're clinging to a misunderstanding of reality. So I don't read it as harsh. Like when I read those statements of the Buddha, it doesn't seem harsh to me. It just seems very direct. The Buddha called it like it was. He didn't say anything that wasn't true. Okay. So where's our next question?
Andre is asking, I have used them. Well, this is what you were asked. Follow up to the question that you were answering earlier. So I have used the method of focusing on the skeleton for concentration as well as mostly breath. Have you or Aya utilized the method of Asubha meditation? And if so, how was your experience with this?
I've used it a little bit, but not much because I'm an aversive type, which means if I do much Asubha meditation, I wind up hating the hell out of everyone and everything, which is not very helpful. So I tend to focus more on loving kindness meditation because that's more useful to me, more beneficial to me. So with Asubha meditation, it's really important to watch your mind and see what effect you're getting. So I think earlier you asked about developing loving kindness. Well, if you're doing Asubha meditation all the time, then it's actually quite hard to develop loving kindness. It's quite hard to develop metta. So that might be part of the difficulty that you're having. Yeah, Asubha meditation, it can be really useful, especially if you have strong lust or attachment to bodies. It can be very useful. But make sure that you're not producing aversion, because that's not helpful at all. Okay.
And Victor is asking, people who have jhana can or cannot regress, get
I think that's supposed to be jhana. Yeah.
Autocorrect to put it, get Joanna. It's not like Sotapanna. Am I correct? Do you want to answer this too?
Jhana does not prevent you from regressing. It's a temporary conditional experience. Yep.
And Bradley, so James says that's a question. Thank you. So we answered it already.
Okay.
And Bradley is saying it's the one where Talaputa is destined for hell due to his profession as a dancer, actor, inciting people's defilements. Oh yeah, I remember now vaguely. Being heedless and negligent themselves, they've encouraged others to be heedless and negligent. When their body breaks up after death, they're reborn in the hell called laughter. Yes, I remember also we had a little debate too. We did it also one morning in Sutastani.
Yeah, I know the sutta you're talking about now. Yeah. Do you want to answer that one?
I would need to reread the sutta though, because I don't remember exactly. I recalled it in memory, but I remember. How about I go get Can you
Or
repeat
I can answer it. I know the
Okay.
sutta.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that sutta, he's talking about the intention. So he's not saying that all actors go to hell. That's not at all what the Buddha is saying. So often I have encountered people who misinterpret that sutta to mean actors go to hell, but that's not what the Buddha is saying. What he's saying is that if an actor has the intention of building up people's defilements and they're doing their performances in order to inspire more uh, greed, hatred, and delusion in people, then that leads to hell. The intention to strengthen other people's defilements leads to hell. That's what he's saying. So it's not being an actor. You can actually be an actor with good intentions of helping other people develop wisdom and compassion. And then that's good, and that leads to rebirth in heaven, and may even help you on the path towards awakening. So that's a really important distinction, especially if you're a performing artist. That doesn't mean that you're going straight to hell, but it does mean that you do need to consider your intentions and the effect of your performances on other people.
Okay, so now I think I'm starting to understand what's going on. So apparently YouTube is censoring James' question, which is why we were not seeing it or something. So he has split it into different. Is the cessation of perception and feeling the same as or nirvana or unbinding nibbana without the A is the dirty word? What? Okay, so nibbana. Nibbana is a banned YouTube word. Anyone try typing that without spaces? Okay, this is so weird.
Okay, apparently YouTube has gone deranged.
Okay, this is the most hilarious thing.
So apparently Jim can't type the word nibbana or else YouTube will delete his messages. So May is absolutely horrified. So our resident May, she had this look of like utter shock and horror. So I think the YouTube algorithm apparently got a little confused on this one.
It's a little unenlightened.
Yeah. Hopefully this problem doesn't continue because this would be a big obstacle for us. Anyway, it's your turn.
Wait, is
the cessation of perception and feeling the same as nirvana or unbinding? That seems to be what he's asking.
How about you reply?
Oh, yeah. No, it's not the same. Okay.
Let's see, he has very zen answers. Maria says, in regards to that response, I read today that the Buddha accommodated his teaching as much as possible to the intellectual level and spiritual needs of the people in front of him. I don't like necessarily the word accommodated his teachings, but that's because it has a bit of a special connotation in my mind. I don't think he accommodates the teachings. It's not accommodated Buddhism, but rather he, out of compassion and wisdom, he understands exactly what you need in order to attain awakening or to make progress towards awakening, which is the special particularity of any Samma Sambuddha. So they just know, they understand the teachings, so they understand, they awaken to the teachings, but they're also able to teach them to others. So they're also able to help other beings, which is not necessarily the case with arhats. So one can be a completely fully realized being, but not being capable of teaching others. And you can find also the reverse, actually, not being fully awakened, but being really able of helping others, like Bhante Sudaso, yay! On the path of Samma Sambuddha. Or anyway, on the path of any form of Buddha. So yeah, that's why I corrected accommodated Buddhism. I think it was just in my understanding, is just perfect Buddhism rather than accommodated Buddhism.
Yeah, thank you for making that distinction. So the term accommodated Buddhism is a somewhat pejorative term that's used to refer to people cutting down or diluting or altering the Buddhist teachings in order to make them more palatable to others. So accommodated Buddhism is not particularly admirable. But rather, again, as Ayasoma is saying, the Buddha spoke in the way that would help people make the most progress towards awakening. But he never compromised on the truth. He states this very clearly in a number of suttas. He states that from the moment they attain awakening until the moment they pass away, a Buddha never tells a lie, ever. They will never deliberately say anything which is not true.
Okay, so I see we're all still chatting about YouTube unenlightened algorithm. But if you have any other thoughts or questions, feel free to type them in, and we'll do our best to answer.
Yeah, and apparently we've learned that when typing the word Nibbana on YouTube, you cannot capitalize the N, or else it will delete your message. So very strange, but okay. Gabriela has a question. Somehow this doesn't surprise me. So please ask your question.
Oh,
Bradley has a question.
How is being a monk, Ayasoma? In the being, let there only be the being.
There are no beings.
But that's the short answer. The semi-short answer is it's great. You should do it too. Want to join us? Yeah, I actually do not remember much. I mean, I remember I have a memory of being a layperson, but it's kind of like a memory of a movie where I was somewhat the protagonist for a period of time, but it's also really bizarre that I was ever experiencing that realm of existence. But this has been true since day one of ordaining. Once I ordained, I was actually pumped. Like, I adjusted also immediately, seamlessly to my name. It was incredible. Actually, it took me a lot longer. It took me about 20 years to adjust to my lay name. So 20 years versus 20 minutes, actually 20 seconds, I think. Yeah, as soon as I saw my name, I was like, Soma. So yeah, I was really happy. I actually don't know why I waited so long. Well, actually, I do know. Venerable Panyavati didn't ordain me earlier. But thank you for ordaining me whenever you ordain me, Venerable.
So Gabriela is asking, how do we make merit as a layman? Kindness, generosity, follow the Noble Eightfold Path, really. Yeah. But mainly generosity, kindness. Yeah. And Jim, go ahead and ask your question. Yep.
Not involve a certain word.
Yeah. And Mark has a question. Maybe do you want to take this one?
So is it possible that karma can show up in a way that teaches me the lesson without it being a direct payback? What I mean is, if I was cruel, couldn't karma show up where I learned to be kind? I don't really understand. Also, what does payback mean again?
Retribution.
Retribution.
However you say that in Italian.
Retribuzione.
Yeah,
Oh,
retribuzione.
yeah.
Very easy. Yeah.
So apparently I know the more complicated words in English and
not the simple ones.
Because the more complicated ones come from Latin, so they're exactly the same in Italian. So is it possible that karma can show up in a way that teaches me the lesson without it being a direct payback? What I mean is, if I was cruel, couldn't karma show up where I learned to be kind? So I think there's a bit of misunderstanding of karma. So I feel like you have a bit of a, from what you're talking or how you're describing and how my tired mind tonight is perceiving it, I seem to get that you're looking at karma like this kind of sort of divine retribution. So you do something that is coming, what goes around comes around, which is not exactly correct. So it's not that something is coming to get you. It's not a divine punishment, but rather it's more kind of like a law, no different than gravity. That is a physical law. We relate, for example, to gravity with understanding. So if right now something drops from the roof, perhaps one of these beams gets loose and falls apart or something and falls down, perhaps I won't be particularly happy about the fact that it's falling down, but I will understand the process and I won't take it personally because it's just the way that the physical world works. So karma is exactly the same way, but it's a law. That's what I'm trying to say. So it's basically what the Buddha talks about. It's cause and effect, causality. So understanding our experience based on this law of karma. So it's impersonal. It's not something that is coming to get you, to hurt you because you deserve it. But rather, it's just simply we put certain conditions in motion in the past, and in the future, we take certain results. No different than anything we experience in the physical world. So what was the question again? I don't remember anymore.
It's this one. You just scrolled past it.
Oh.
This one.
So, in terms of teaching, you can turn it into a teaching. You can understand it. That's actually how I try to do it. Instead of approaching whatever I experience as, oh, poor me, poor me, poor me, poor me, poor me, poor me. There is still some of that happens here and there. Sometimes I'm like, oh, yeah, like, seriously, I need a break. Like, there's a lot of things happening. Yeah, poor me. It's just like, intense. But then I correct myself and I go, oh, you uninstructed worldling. How about you take this as a great opportunity to break the cycle, to actually create better conditions for the future? So to dilute the sort of unwholesome things that we're experiencing and taking it, yes, as a great learning opportunity, and also a great opportunity to practice in accordance to Dhamma instead of practicing in accordance to greed, hatred, and delusion. Hence, moving towards liberation. So those are my words on that.
Great. Then Gabriella, going in a bit more detail on her earlier question, she says, I want to make merit to cultivate my own well-being, but I have no idea what the right mindset is, as it feels like trying to win points, and that's not the right approach, I feel instinctively. So that's the way to build up merit as a layman. And Marielle on the same subject is asking, building merit with generosity and kindness will only work if you have the right intention, right? If you only built merit to gain something, then it wouldn't be honest. So, so the proper attitude for performing an act of kindness is the attitude of wanting the other person to be happy. The proper attitude of practicing generosity is wanting the other person to be happy. So you practice kindness and generosity just because that's the right thing to do, because that's the wholesome thing, because it's part of the path. And you do it out of a genuine sense of kindness and compassion and consideration. So you shouldn't be thinking, how many points am I getting for this? Because, well, of course, that's the wrong attitude. life is not a video game. It's not about getting the high score. Life is about following the path of the Buddha's teachings that leads towards full enlightenment. So yeah, it's not about accumulating points. It's about being kind. It's about being generous. It's about building up a genuine attitude of compassion and thoughtfulness in your mind.
And James is asking, is karma intention or action? So my understanding of karma is that it's an action with intention. So an action can, for example, as killing. So killing an ant unintentionally does not have a karmic retribution. So it might have the unmindfulness karmic retribution. So if I'm like, ooh, I killed, exterminated an entire colony of ants. Oopsie, I didn't intentionally do it. Yes, it's true. I didn't intentionally go for the ants, but I'm cultivating another type of karma, which is going unmindfully in the world, being spaced out and dying confused. So that's the retribution. But if I actually see the colony of ants and I intentionally killed them, then that will have the karmic retribution, not retribution, the karma. Mamma mia, tonight I can't speak English, bear
You
with
can
me.
say karmic retribution.
Okay,
I'm fine with
thank
those
you.
words. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I think it's accurate enough. Yes, our resident Jennifer has a question.
So previously, I experienced in Mahayana tradition, whenever we do anything, we chant that before I won't achieve enlightenment before I save everyone. So the Bodhisattva path, I guess, and that really speaks to me. But then it's a contradict with Theravada tradition that after we go towards stream enter, there's only like 7 lifetime. So I'm just curious on hearing your perspective on this.
Well, first off, so Jennifer is saying that in the Mahayana tradition, there's the aspiration to try to help all beings attain awakening. But in the Theravada tradition, there's the idea that once one becomes a stream enterer, there's only 7 lives left. And she says this seems like 2 different paths. So she's asking how to relate to that. Well, I would say that first off, it's not necessarily in contradiction. So the Diamond Sutra here is incredibly helpful in that in there it clearly states that if a bodhisattva thinks in terms of living beings, then they're not a true bodhisattva. So if you think I need to delay my own enlightenment in order to save other living beings, then you've actually missed the practice of the bodhisattva.
So Bodhisattva path is still different from the Arahant.
Well, this is a long-standing debate. So I think actually we should just have a whole talk on that subject.
Yeah, actually that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a 5-minute answer. That's like a 5-hour
Yeah,
answer.
you open the can of worms or Pandora's box.
Yeah, so I have a lot to say on that subject, and I can't answer it in 5 minutes. But yeah, we can put that as a topic for a talk one of these days.
Yeah. And Mitch is asking, if you had a child, how would you go about introducing them to these teachings? I would, if I had a child and I weren't a monastic, because that would be weird. If I had a child and I wanted to introduce them to Buddhism, I would bring them to an Asian Buddhist temple. Because any other temple, including ours, because neither Banten or I are Asian, nor were we born Buddhist, we just get it wrong. Like, we really just get it so wrong, like so complicated. So I don't know, it becomes, in the best case scenario, it becomes a bit of a mindfulness practice, which is all right, but it's nothing in comparison to the beauty and incredible everything, wisdom and compassion that is taught to children that go to Asian Buddhist temples. It's delightful, actually. It's so beautiful. The way that they learn dana, for example, giving, that is embedded in their bones before they're even able to speak. It's so beautiful. Like the parents bring the children to do the offerings to the monks and like get them with hands together and offering the food, even though they can't really like use the spoon properly. So they help them put the food. It's so beautiful. Every time I want to cry out of happiness. Like it's just incredibly so joyful. And the children are happy to go to the temple. They are really getting what is the core elements of Buddhist practice that it's otherwise very difficult actually to develop later on as a sort of a self-centered New Yorker, all, intended in the career, and then finds Buddhism and starts practicing meditation, and then they're like, oh, well, when do I get the first jhana and the second jhana? Well, you're not getting a first jhana, second jhana, or even like 2 minutes of concentration because your morality is terrible. It's true. It's incredible. Like we've been running this organization now for some time, and it's remarkable how we get some practitioners who were born in Asia who actually had never practiced meditation or had practiced meditation once when they were children, and they sit down, bam, rock solid and super blissed out, incredible. And why is that? It's because they have a rock solid foundation of sila, of faith that has been built in that environment. So if I were a parent, that's what I would do. I wouldn't focus on getting them to stay still and, it's okay. It's good. But I don't think it's time for an intensive Vipassana retreat at the age of 3. Like, I think it's good to really establish the conditions for then the intensive Vipassana to be like very... Yeah, actually, May, our resident Burmese, she says, so, I trust her because she doesn't lie, but apparently before she came to the insights, she hadn't meditated for like 15 years, 13 years, I can't remember, something like that. Yeah. She's like, oh yeah, I haven't like meditated at all, like in the 13, 15 years. She sits down, boom, like she never stands up. Hours and hours and hours and hours straight. So it's remarkable. It's incredible. And in fact, she's a really beautiful person with incredible sila.
And Boone asks, should we apply wisdom when we practice kindness? Yes, but don't get in the way of your own kindness. Just be kind. Practice kindness. Don't overthink it. And don't interfere with your own kindness.
And Gabriela says, also forgive me for having always a flood of questions. My mind's a thinking mind, and it's constantly immersed in Dhamma, so I always am learning new things. This is great. No, we're really happy that you ask questions. So you're forgiven, but there's also nothing to forgive. And James, okay, you guys should all come. We should actually, after the pandemic, we should have a YouTube live, but it's in like live retreat. You should all come to Empty Cloud Monastery, and we do an actual retreat here live, in person live.
Yeah,
you're all welcome. It will be great. Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, I have faith in you all attaining awakening soon. Sadhu. Well, we all have faith in you all attaining awakening as well.
Well, may we all attain awakening as swiftly as possible. And may our practice today be for the benefit of all sentient beings. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
See you tomorrow at 8 a.m. Have a great